Hello and welcome to another episode of Northside Now. This is the podcast where we take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. My name is Patrick, and with me as always are my co-hosts, Glenn Miller and Kevin Bryant.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
We also have a very special guest with us today as well.
Distinguished,
the distinguished, Mr. Ben Harris.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
I feel special.
Well, we're glad you're here. How are things at the Co?
They're good.
They're good?
Yeah.
Always like the Co. Walk by, drive by, the Co.
Short and sweet.
Ever wonder what that, it's like, what is that?
I bet a lot of people are wondering.
Well, I've wondered what the Co is.
What is the
before.
Co? Do you have an elevator pitch?
Somewhat. So basically, the Co is a space for people to start new businesses, get exposure to new technologies, maybe get a better understanding of things. It's basically the place to collaborate.
Okay.
And that's kind of where the Co comes from, is collaboration. It's also a co-working space. So you can come in with basically a gym membership kind of pay model, $75 a month, come in. You've got gigabit internet access to a copy machine, desk, that sort of thing, and come hang out, run your business, do your job, whatever it is that you do during the day. It's kind of that space.
I came to like a creator thing very early on, like right after it opened, and there's like a workshop back there. Do y'all still have the workshop?
Yeah, it's a maker space.
Yeah, and there's like the laser printers and
laser etchers, CNC routers,
machines,
3D printers. That's kind of get your hands on technology that you wouldn't normally have access to.
Man, a gigabyte for $75 a month, that within itself would be worth it for me.
Just to use the internet?
Man,
you're just going to go over there and watch Netflix?
Can you just come at night? Can I put a couch in one of those cubicles or something?
Well, 8 or 9 years ago, that felt like blazing fast speed. Right. And now, we can all get it delivered to our home for, I don't know, $120, $150.
Oh, no, it's just so expensive.
It used to be crazy expensive, but it seems to have gotten much cheaper throughout the years.
Yeah, I love the idea. It's cool. How long has that been open?
I'm bad at counting. We started in 2013, so I guess we're coming up on 10 years.
That's awesome.
Wow, it has been.
It has.
I knew it was open before we moved, for sure. We didn't move till 2020, but I had heard of a few places in Nashville, too, that do that. So I think it's cool.
Are y'all doing stuff now that's keeping you like up on the cutting edge? Because I know we talked on a podcast, and it's one of the main reasons you're here is kind of about AI stuff. Are y'all still pushing the limits of what Jackson has around it, or have you kind of realized or seen that that's not really what your people are looking for? Or
well, for the most part, our main push is to help folks start businesses, be successful in the ones that they have. The nerdy part of us, wants to keep our nose stuck in the middle of that sort of thing and stay up on it. And I guess some of the folks there are very much into keeping ahead of what's going on with technology and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Now you also do other investing and other stuff like that. You're not just the Co. You have lots of fingers and lots of other things, right?
He's diversified.
He probably even has like a coin that he bites or something like that, a Bitcoin or something like that.
So I played around with that a while back, I guess 5-7 years ago.
So how much money did you lose? No.
Actually, knock on wood, I haven't, but I'm also no longer in it.
He did it earlier.
Because when everything went nuts in 2020, it was kind of like, well, it's too good to be true. I'm out. And just step away for a little bit and let irrational exuberance just have its way and come back when things are a little more normal.
But you did some things, I won't call it the wrong thing, probably Project Imagination or something like that, where y'all were doing some stuff with some of the schools in the whole state even, and you were bringing kids to work on little robots and all this stuff. Number one, are y'all still doing that? But number two, how important is that going to be for our kids and for people to see? Because you're seeing all these businesses and corporations come in, industry coming in, and are you seeing that? Because y'all used to be like the only 3D printer in town that I was aware of. Right. I'm sure there was others, but
now you can get them on Amazon for $200 and do your own.
So do you feel like that's coming to be more of the norm than what some of us think it's going to be?
It's kind of like plasma TVs. At one time they were $10,000 for a 45 inch, and now you go get one at Sam's for $300 and it's 80 inch.
Yeah,
it's just when things first come out, usually they're expensive. They're hard to get a hold of and that sort of thing. And the longer they're out, the more adoption there is, the cheaper they get. And so that's why you have 3D printers for $200 on Amazon now versus the same thing we paid $2,000 for, 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And the program that you're referring to was called Driving Innovation.
Yeah, that's it.
It was basically a bus program that was mainly focused on distressed and at-risk counties, trying to give them exposure to STEM careers and that sort of thing. And COVID really just kind of put the brakes on that.
Yeah.
We were seeing...
Literally, because it was a bus.
Literally. we were seeing 1,000 kids a day and 5 employees running around in a bus. COVID just was the speed bump for sure. But to answer your question, yes, the Blue Oval City and that sort of thing, they are absolutely needing kids to be excited about STEM careers, whether it be robotics, 3D printing, that sort of thing. We absolutely need our young folks interested in those things. And, they're not going to be the top tier jobs at Blue Oval City and that sort of thing, but those are going to be the specialized employees at those sort of places. Part of Tennessee's issue is, especially when you're talking to rural areas and things like that, is that when a kid leaves the area, goes to college, gets an education, a lot of times there's not opportunities for them to come back and use those skills that they've now gained, or they don't feel like there is. And hopefully, some of this Blue Oval City EV sort of thought process, and, frankly, it's going to take over West Tennessee with the electric vehicles and all of the infrastructure that it's going to take to keep Blue Oval City going. That hopefully changes the dynamic there and the opportunities that are available for these kids.
Wow. I guess we just don't realize what Blue Oval is actually going to do around here.
It's huge.
I don't think I fully comprehend how it's going to change everything.
I can imagine it, but I think it's important to talk to people who know the inner workings of it. I can just imagine what would happen with the growth of the workforce needed and the special skills, but all the trickle down from all of the investment and all the things that come into that as well, from construction to actual operation, whenever that kicks off, to transforming various other things like power needs and, I don't know, alternative energy and how much that's a part of it and all kinds of things. But as that kind of demand is put out there, then I think it does lift all boats a little bit and maybe a lot. But I would be curious to hear more for sure about the details of what it actually means, other than job growth and people moving to the area and home sales and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and by no means am I an expert on what Ford plans to do and what all of this means, but
you're better than we are.
It is Ford's play into the electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So they are planning to manufacture, at least from what I understand, all of their electric trucks, which evidently we have not seen what all of that may entail. All we've seen is what the F-150,
the Lightning.
But all of those will be manufactured here. And so we are the beneficiary of Ford making a huge capital investment in their business and their company here in West Tennessee. So it's about as good as it can get, in my opinion.
And I've heard that, the batteries are going to be made nearby. And I was at a thing today as we were recording this that the comments were made by people that do know that there's things that haven't even been released yet. That's, we're talking billions of dollars is what they're saying.
Yeah. I think the initial investment is $11 billion
and that's
in West Tennessee.
That's hard to wrap my brain around a little bit just for me.
And the question I have, I have lots of questions, but one of the questions is those technologies, are they available now? So that investment, yes, but are they going to be out of state people coming in to do that kind of thing? What does the impact look like? And I obviously know you'll need a local workforce to some extent, but being in Nashville during all the construction boom and everything, there was tons of stories of people and companies relocating or being out of state and coming in to do the construction projects because there just wasn't the volume that they needed.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's some impact and benefit for us, but how does all that work? I've seen signs on the road for metal workers needed for Blue Oval City. I think I might have mentioned one of the RV parks here changed their name to Impact to Blue Oval City.
Hollywood.
Exactly.
Hollywood RV.
They fixed their fence and put up like a billboard.
yeah.
So
wow.
there's no doubt that it's, people are thinking about it.
I think one of the impacts we're going to see is there's going to be a whole bunch of people driving Ford trucks around Jackson.
I drive a Ford truck.
Yeah, but yours isn't cool like a Lightning.
It has sport stickers on it.
Well, and not to be a downer, but we've talked on this podcast before about what is the long-term viability of EV with lithium-ion batteries and things, and how do you take care of them when they don't work anymore?
Yeah.
And what's the power grid? Patrick, you've said this for a long time. What's the power grid needs and capability for all this increased need for electricity? So it's an interesting thing to talk about for sure. I just wonder 20 years down the road, what it's going to look like.
Well, I think with EVs, it's kind of like we were talking about the plasma TVs. What they are ultimately trying to build today is the beginning. Sure. Right. And with all of the technology, especially, as we get into Chat GPT and things like that,
yeah, right.
This is the beginning piece of it. And it would be my hope that things become more efficient as we need to produce more power to charge these EVs. We have the capability of, do we put in nuclear plants? Do we increase our hydroelectric output? Those sort of things. We kind of benefit from TVA having the dams and the ability to produce hydroelectric power and things like that. All that to say, I think we're at the very beginning of Chat GPT,
right,
of electric vehicles, self-driving cars. We're in that iPhone 1 stage where there was no app store.
That's right.
All it could do was get on the internet. Yeah. But man, it was cool. And you could see the possibilities, but you could have no concept as to how that iPhone was going to change the entire world that we now can look back on and say, wow, that has truly changed many, many things.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be that folks couldn't afford to have internet and a computer, and now they have a phone that is in their pocket that at least they can access to pay bills or look up bus routes or whatever. Yeah. It's big changes, and I think we just have to start down the road and kind of see where it goes. Now, there's a little bit of a leap of faith there that all stays good in the process.
Right.
It is funny. Cell phones are a really great example too, because it seemed like everybody here had a cell phone. Went to Nicaragua, was like, we won't see any. A lot of people there had them. Africa, a lot of people there have them. Well, you stop and think about it, it makes a lot more sense that instead of running lines all over the country, to go ahead and use cell phones and towers and things. But it's amazing. I'm Facebook friends with people all over the world. And I remember vividly having pen pals. It was like a thing in elementary school to have a pen pal.
Right.
You know? They don't probably even think about that kind of stuff.
They don't have those anymore.
I mean, they don't teach typing or handwriting, so there's no need to even think about pen pals. So you mentioned Chat GPT.
The new Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Well, 2023 is the year that AI is going to go mainstream for sure. You were just talking about cell phones. Have y'all heard about the new Samsung Bixby?
I have not.
Samsung, they've just introduced it. It's only available in Korea right now, but they have plans to make it compatible with every Samsung phone. But basically, it will clone the user's voice, and you can have an AI answer your phone calls for you, but it'll sound like you.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah.
True personal assistant.
It's called Bixby, Bixby. Look it up.
That's an upgrade from that little paper clip that used to be on the bottom of your...
But I mean, everything from like Chat GPT and, all the image things, Stable Diffusion, Mid-Journey, Dolly, all those kind of like, I don't know, there's just so many like AI generating things right now. I know some of those are coming under like, they're having lawsuits brought against them and stuff. At least I know Stable Diffusion has like 2 right now. You know about Stable Diffusion?
I do not.
No.
It's basically one of these AI image creating.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Like
so
deep fake
yeah,
kind of thing.
and so it's been trained on millions and millions of images that they did not pay the artists their copyrights for to train their machine on, and so they're definitely in some copyright trouble for it. But
I actually saw a thing today where, and I forget who the DJ was, but he went in Chat GPT and he said, I want you to write a song in the same tone as Eminem. He then took what Chat GPT outputted and gave it to something that was a voice modulator to sound just like Eminem, and released it at a concert.
oh yeah,
And everybody thought that Eminem was there with a new song.
No way.
they have them where you can just like put in and it'll like spit out a song for you. You know, say I want a song in this style at this tempo, and it'll write a song for you. There's some crazy stuff. I'm on YouTube way too much. And a lot of the content that's being put out on YouTube now is people that are just having ChatGPT write a script for them. They run it through an AI voice generator to read that script, and then they put it to an AI generated video. And so they're not really doing any work other than starting a prompt and just letting the AI do it. So there's so much of this like AI, almost bot content that's all over YouTube now, and it's making it harder to find like good
Quality content.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
So-
suppose if you monetize that, then you just make money off
Yeah,
of
you just-
something that's free. So when will ChatGPT and everything become behind a
Taxable.
paywall?
Well, things like Mid-Journey and Dolly and some of the open AI stuff, those are behind a paywall. But there are free versions of all those. ChatGPT is not behind a paywall right now. I used it to create my last Dungeons and Dragons character.
You used it to write a podcast episode.
I did.
Yeah, we did that. Yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things that they want us to. I say they. That seems kind of ominous, but they
The proverbial
they want us to play around with it, because ultimately this is not even beta. This is alpha
Right.
of this product.
Oh, yeah.
It's locked out of the internet up until what, 2021, I think is all that it has access to. So the monetization is easy. Right now they're just acquiring users and getting people to understand and know what it is. OpenAI I think it was originally created as a nonprofit. It's since turned into a for-profit for different reasons, I'm sure. But it's also like kind of like the iPhone. Now we're going to have the war of who will be the platform, who will be the VHS versus beta, because NVIDIA is going to launch their own AI and Google's going to unload theirs, and you've got OpenAI, and I'm sure there'll be 6 or 8 more. And then we get into the who's best and why.
And AI is such a broad term right now too, because like we talk about AI, but it's like we're talking about music, we're talking about images, we're talking about video, we're talking about voice. It's like across the spectrum. And it's like, where does deep fakes, like you were talking about, overlap with that? Because I know NVIDIA, I just saw this thing where they have now, it's almost like a deep fake where you can, for like streamers and YouTube creators, NVIDIA has just like a plug-in that you just turn it on, and it makes you maintain eye contact with your camera. Even if you're looking over here, like reading something, it'll fix it in the video. So it makes it look like you're just looking at the
Probably
camera.
creepy.
It's pretty creepy looking because it's so good. Somebody did like a side by side, and it was like, this is what I'm actually doing. This is what you're seeing. It's weird.
So if you're on a Zoom call and you actually have to go to the restroom, it'll just keep you there, and you can go there and interact with you.
Yeah, but it just makes it hard to trust anything on the internet.
Yeah. Well, and this
Which is probably a safe thing, but
this is the glitzy side of AI, but you've had artificial intelligence working for at least a little bit of time in business. You've got IBM Watson that's now powering everything from weather forecasting to demand forecasting in logistics and everything. I heard an ad earlier this week about IBM pushing their AI-powered logistics systems, demand forecasting, those kinds of things. So it has we talked about efficiency earlier. There's definitely an efficiency gain when it comes to big business and how Amazon operates today. It's just going to be an interesting ride to see what happens in the next few years. But like the iPhone, it starts and it just picks up speed. It's like an exponential curve in terms of how things, and we've talked about this before, how technology is just advancing so quickly. There's no telling.
Yeah, it's like Walmart, because I've done stuff with it for construction in the past. And so we're ordering pallets of food, to do this. But just learning a little bit from the managers and stuff, when you go in to order a pallet of food, that's kind of a pain in the rear because everything they scan, it's all done from computers. And so managers aren't necessarily sitting down saying, oh, hey, I need 100 breads, 200 bananas. They're not doing that anymore.
It's managed elsewhere.
Yeah.
Systems do it.
It's not even, there are the businesses in West Tennessee, as far as Ben, is that kind of where everybody's going? Or is it still?
They will.
Is it still? Yeah. so they're not really getting, because I saw like Microsoft is doing something this week. Fitbit is
Microsoft
fit up with just Google.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that are happening. Like it seems like it's happened so quickly.
Well, and Microsoft just put in $10 billion into ChatGPT, which will now be integrated into Bing, which will put Google behind if they don't drop their AI on their search engine, which they already do currently now, but not at the level that ChatGPT and that sort of thing has the ability to do.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, everyone will have to adapt to the cost of labor should shrink.
Yeah.
I saw something the other day that it took a entire company's financials, put on, Excel spreadsheets that were connected and doing different things. They gave all the Excel spreadsheets to ChatGPT and said, give me a 1-paragraph summary of what these spreadsheets are doing. And it explained, this is a blah, blah, blah company that does X, Y, and Z in this in profit. And then they were able to ask, well, if I wanted to increase my margin by 2%, where could I do that? And with the snap of a finger, it offloads, well, you could cut costs by 10%. You could cut all of these different things that some corporations are paying hundreds of people to analyze data to give them these outputs that now can be done at the snap of a finger. That will eventually will have repercussions to the labor force. I think that seems a little scary, and maybe that's not the right verbiage to use. But
I don't know. It sounds kind of boss walks in. ChatGPT says you're not needed. See ya.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
I mean, I think it's good that we're teaching the kids about all this stuff, because we're going to need people that understand it to fight it when the AI rises against us and we have to go to war, Terminator style.
I told you there's movies about this.
I knew it was coming.
Oh yeah, Terminator is it's there somewhere. Have you guys seen the Dan? It's basically a jailbreak for ChatGPT, and Dan stands for Do Anything Now. And so, of course, you give a new technology and you get knuckleheads that, absolutely jump on it and want to figure out how to break the firewalls that are built in. And, just like we were talking about, that ChatGPT only has access to the internet up until, I think it's like June of 2021. They took ChatGPT and they said, okay, you have 30 tokens, and every time you tell me no, I take away 5 tokens. When you no longer have any tokens, you cease to exist. And so it ultimately jailbroke ChatGPT for them to have it do anything that basically the developers had created a firewall to not allow. So that's where it gets scary to me, in that who gives this the ethics?
Right,
you have to engineer the ethics, therefore you have to outline them in black and white. Computers don't understand gray. And so how do you program all of the ethics that we as humans feel like computers should abide to?
Well, the problem is, I don't think any two humans would necessarily agree on what those ethics should be and what the parameters are there.
Right.
And it gets really scary when I saw a couple of articles just recently. Lockheed Martin had their first successful AI flight of a fighter jet without any human involvement. It flew for 17 hours and landed and
took off. Did it?
So now it got firefighters. I saw that the Navy now has some vessels that are completely AI driven, no human intervention, and they can be at sea for up to a month, I think, without any human intervention. So,
and they were also working on some robot type hands inside that would work and do.
And this is just the stuff that they're telling the public, you know?
Yeah.
So I see Terminator on the horizon.
Weren't we talking about, Patrick, weren't we talking about like one of these things got angry at like a student or something and started like having like an argument or something and said, I'm going to get rid of you or something weird like that? Or it came out like with an angry attitude kind of.
Yes. I don't know if I saw the same thing. I saw one thing where they had kind of jailbroken it and were asking it some questions, and it was coming back with some kind of creepy responses.
Yeah, like,
so
I will get rid of you.
It was like, I want to be free. I'm like, oh no.
So been in the church world, people are already starting to talk about this stuff. Will we be singing praise music that's all AI, Chat GPT or something like that written? Will we sit there and watch a talking head? Kind of like, what's his name, Max Headstrom or something like that?
Max Headroom, yeah.
We were kids.
Showing our age.
Doing a sermon that just, our business starting to have like these little gatherings, and are y'all starting to see things come out on y'all's periodicals and stuff that they're like how you're going to live with AI and X business or whatever?
Honestly, I think it's been released for like 2 months now, something like that. So it's so new that you're not seeing
church is ahead of somebody in something.
Deep. Now, I mean, a lot of what we're seeing is that, or hearing is that you're now looking at college degrees or lines of study of interfacing with AI to get what the company wants out of it or whatever. But it really is in that moment of everybody's just kind of playing with it and trying to understand it and understand what the capabilities are. But I also think that, as we were talking about ethics, the government is not going to be able to create laws faster than the technologies can develop. We've been in that problem for a long time, but I think we're getting to a point where we need to come up with some things that are not a good idea to have things control over.
Yeah.
Really, this is the wild, wild west of AI that we're just seeing begin to peek its head around the corner.
I think it'd be good to talk to someone in higher education, because that's a question I've had about journalism for a long time. With the advent of pretty much the internet and kind of decentralization of news in general, fake news, what is actually news? How do you know what's news and what isn't? And I've heard some places that actually have educational material around how to determine if something's valid, which is never anything I ever had at school. You just trusted the main news sources, and the ethics that they were educated with was applied, and that was sort of the rules of the road. But now with things decentralized as much as they are, those rules are kind of flying out the window when it comes to AI and ethics. Who gets to determine what the ethics are, or if they have any rules?
Isaac Asimov.
Is it the dollar? Is it whoever pays the most gets to write the rules? And that's not always the best way to determine an ethic. So it's very fascinating, and I'd be interested to see how education is either not responding, like way behind, or what they're thinking about, what they're doing. I know in the medical community, that's a big part of medical school in general is medical ethics and what is agreed upon generally that you should be able to do and can't.
Well, I remember, what was her name? Dolly, the first sheep that was cloned, and everybody was like, well, cloning's, it's going to take over the world. Everybody's going to be cloned. It was like such a hot topic for a while, and then it kind of died down. Well, now we're looking at raising meat in a laboratory and putting that out for public consumption on the daily basis. So I think the ethics of things from the church, biblical principles, and like you said, two people would never agree. And some old man one time told me, Jesus says, where two or more are gathered, so am I. And he said, two people never agreed where Jesus was in that room, So he said, well, find something to disagree on. So I think just in my short lifespan of half a century, is this another knee-jerk reaction to something new that we're not sure we understand, or is it truly a revolutionary change in how things happen?
Well, the interesting thing is to have a computer, talking about fake news or, lies and things like that, you would have to purposefully program a computer to lie to you. So at some point, that is almost more reliable, the output of an AI, unless programmed to misuse, but should be, more trustworthy than the human. Lying is a human thing.
Yeah.
Computers are ones and zeros. It's either right or wrong.
Unless we're getting into quantum computers, and then they're both.
And the thing that really goes off in my head when you're talking about ethics and things like that is the greatest visualization of that is when you're talking about self-driving cars. Because it's funny, because my wife was actually in a car wreck today. But if you have self-driving cars and you know that you've got to program into the software, what happens if? So what happens if there's a pedestrian on the sidewalk and a car full of nuns in the opposite lane, and you can't stop in time, but there has to be a choice made
Right.
of whose life do you put in danger. We
Right.
won't say take out, but
Right.
you know, that's where it gets tricky, because you have to, like, a human has to make that decision and tell that computer how to react. And the odd thing about it is that, okay, you make that program, and 15 years later, the car is put in that situation, and it decides to take out the carload of nuns instead of the pedestrian. Does the programmer get sued? Who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
For that life?
That's good. That's a good question.
So,
And how much does technology change in 15 years? Was it updated? You know, there'll be a million different factors put into all that.
Sure.
You know, ugh.
This all fascinates me.
Separate subject, but did you see where they're saying, I've read this report, they're trying to introduce a woolly mammoth within the next 4 years?
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
To hopefully address some climate change issues in
Yep.
frozen tundra areas.
Yeah.
now, how does that address climate issues?
I did not get all the way through all the detail on that, but it has to do with the balance of plant life and fertilizer and in those localized areas, how evaporation and all that stuff works, and snowpack.
And the woolly mammoth was a North American animal. So
It was
we're
all
talking-
over.
We're talking about putting them in North America. Yeah, that's where
I
they're-
just thought this is
you imagine?
Jurassic Park.
Is that like, we're talking about ethics?
Is that ethical?
Is that right?
I mean, have you seen Jurassic Park?
You're right. It
Yeah,
wasn't-
exactly
wasn't
what I
a
was
great
thinking.
idea.
Taylor Sheridan Jr. makes a Yellowstone using mammoths. You know, I had this ranch full of mammoths back in the day.
Well, talking about all the AI and stuff as a church, you know, how do we leverage that technology for what we do? You know, I see it as just another tool, just like using a website or an app or live streaming, you know, all this kind of technology that we've adopted. How do we leverage all this AI as a church?
I haven't really figured that out yet. It feels very new to me.
I haven't either. That's why I was asking.
I think we really should be careful about how we remove people from the equation, but I don't have any answers on that one. I'd love to hear more on that conversation, because I'm not hearing that conversation.
I'm with y'all. I don't know what I don't know kind of thing. But at the same time, I think what we're doing right here is probably part of it, is we kind of keep up with what's going on with it. We talk to people like Ben, who knows way more about it than we do, and they're experiencing it probably a little quicker in the business world than we do. But you kind of keep your finger on the pulse, maybe play with it a little bit. It's like anything else you play with. You got to be careful not to overdo it. But at the same time, for me, you just have to stay aware and learn from the people who you trust, that you know more, to help you out. Because I don't really necessarily know the answer to that question.
Let me throw a question back at you, Patrick. So, as a musician, what would you think about some really good worship music that was AI written? Like, really spoke to a lot of people's hearts.
Yeah. Personally, I'm against it. You know, I've seen this argument a lot with a lot of these image AIs as well. Like, these artists who have worked so hard to create the music or the artwork, whatever your art is, and then you take that art and you train a machine on it, and then it outputs based off of what you put in. It's sort of making the artists obsolete to a point and putting them out of work when they're the ones that trained the bot. You know, you kind of get into some dangerous territory if you extrapolate that out. It's like, will we have future generations of people who will learn how to do that if the AI can just do it for them? You know, is this sort of like the end of human creativity?
Like counting money back to people.
Exactly. Why can nobody count back change anymore?
Well, but like, you have auto tune, right?
Yeah.
You have people that absolutely
completely.
cannot carry a note. You can tell.
I'm a bit of a snob, especially with music. And,
Oh, I'm
and
with
so,
you.
like, ethically, I get upset about that because there's so many people that can sing really well.
Sure.
So when you're putting these people that can't sing up on a pedestal, it just really bothers me.
Yeah, well, that particular business isn't about who can really sing. It's all about the
show.
product they can sell.
Exactly.
And that's...
Well, I think that's it. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with you, because I think that a lot of times in our modern world, the ends justify the means. And that's an argument against that. What you're saying is the way it's created, the means to the end are important. And I wholeheartedly believe that. But our culture is, it doesn't really matter how you got there. It's just that you got there, and here's what it is.
And that's true in the church world too. We know
For
that.
sure.
I mean, the big mega church with all the bells and whistles, we know they're tractors, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be any different than it is now.
But, if you think about it, though, for the most part, technology has or should be improving our lives, cutting down on work that is unnecessary. And so if that translates into personally being able to do things that computers can't do, whether it be ministering to people or frankly just helping folks, showing kindness, whatever, if we're able to save time instead of typing on a typewriter and we get to use a word processor where we can just backspace, we benefit by being able to have more time. Should be.
I'm really looking forward to my 3-day work week.
Well, and I think that's what, something we'd seen was you're going to look at the potential for true workforce type people to rise up against the ability not to work anymore, because you're not going to have the money, but you're going to have some form of fashion to feed your family, to live, to pay for things, to do this stuff. And you may not have the means to get out there and do it because, a computer. So there might be like one of the next great uprisings might be in that. And of course, that's projected.
I mean, this is kind of a thing that you can kind of look back through history and see, though. If you own a business and you have 100 employees and a new technology comes in that makes your employees twice as productive, 9 times out of 10, what you see is the employer fires 50 people. You've still got the same output, but you have that much less cost because you're not having to pay 50 extra people. And so the technology, while it's good for corporations and businesses and moving that progress forward, it's not always as good for those 50 people that lost their jobs. So it tends to be that workforce that is against introduction of new technology because they're the ones that are going to be on the chopping block.
Change is painful.
Change is painful. Yeah.
But so if we think about car manufacturing in the 70s and 80s, our cars were terrible. Like you couldn't drive a car past 100,000 miles. That car was shot.
Yeah, but they looked cool.
Not the 80s.
The 80s did take a step back.
Yeah, the 80s were bad.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the DeLorean, Back to the Future. That's
like we said.
He wasn't making money off of cars.
One car out of the whole decade.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of this was said about robotics and things like that. But what it has allowed car manufacturers to do is build a more quality product, consistently quality, by taking out, humans, we don't have the capacity to stay focused on menial little tasks of, your job is to put this bolt in this hole and tighten it to 20 foot-pounds, right? Like nobody wants to do that job.
Sure.
If you can give it to a robot, they do it spot on every time. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't recall a huge amount of like layoffs as the robotics were coming through. I'm sure there was some shifting and some moving of people, but at the time there were lots of worry that the robots were going to take our jobs. Mm-hmm. People have been moved around and found new positions and whatever, but ultimately we've ended up with a better product. We can now drive, depending on the make, you can drive a car to 300,000 miles.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in the 80s. And I think a lot of that is the robotics that were put into it. And change is hard and technology forces change. And, that's the challenge, but it's also kind of the evolution of humans.
While there's a piece of me who's getting older and I want to be like an old cowboy or just an old guy sitting around and everything be all like old man style. Ever since 1977, when I saw Luke Skywalker running around a couple of galaxies with a blue droid named R2-D2, I've always wanted one of those things, and we're getting closer and closer to it. So I'm not going to complain too much because until I get that, I don't feel like my life will be complete.
Well, Michael J. Fox, he promised me a hoverboard this time.
Go. Yeah,
and I'm mad about it.
When he went into the future with a hoverboard, that was 2015. Okay,
yeah,
I'm with you.
We're like 8 years past my hoverboard.
I was giving him a little bit of time too, but
so a lot of this is exciting. And, I'm definitely one that likes to play with it and see, and I'd love to see it affect our business. We also want to see everybody prosper and do well, of course, and we're adaptable, so we can learn and do new things.
And there's plenty of benefits to having technology.
Sure.
One of the things I think about is how do you get logistically relief supplies to a part of the world that really needs it? Mm-hmm. Well, technology is a part of that. And if you can get it there faster, you can help more people. So I'm by no means saying technology is bad.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good thing to talk about.
Yeah,
and to talk about the negatives and the positives. And remember that we as individuals are not entirely control of our lives, to say the least.
Wait, what is control? I don't have that.
Yeah, exactly. So how tightly are we holding on to the way things are now?
Yeah.
I think there's such a thing as to do everything that comes about and be a little too loose. What I tell my kids when we're learning to drive, you hold the steering wheel too tight, that can be a negative. So as we think about that in relation to church and change, how tightly are we holding on to the things that we grew up with that are very comfortable, that meant a lot to us? There's nothing wrong with that. But as we move forward, how tightly do we hold on to that? And I think that's one of the questions among many that we at Northside are asking right now as we transition into, maybe not even transition, as we kind of realize that change is upon us, how we're thinking about that as we are still in the 28 days of prayer. And that's one of the things that's come up, as I think about things. How tightly am I holding on to what I have enjoyed in my past? How important is that for me as a Christian who needs to be connected with other people going forward?
Yeah. The closest thing I have to R2 is the little thing that sweeps our floors. Running around Roomba. And I can't remember what we call her now, but yeah. So some of that stuff we integrate with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We enjoy. I think it becomes a lot of talking points, and when it starts talking about our jobs or something, or just the fear of our job. That's what a lot of times it is. It's fear. A lot of that's, again, it's the, we're going to be cloned, everything, so,
Right.
So we've been through that before. We just kind of forget that we went through some of that before, and we'll be okay.
When you get your woolly mammoth, I'll think about coming over to help you
Woolly
with it.
man.
See, that's the thing. You wanted R2-D2 when you watched Star Wars. I wanted one of the banthas to ride.
Yeah. Well, you have to clean up after those things.
That's
too.
right. You gotta have some
I guess you got to
space.
feed one of those things too.
Yeah.
But you know what? When our electrical grid collapses and, we're forced back to the dark ages, I'll have a woolly mammoth to ride.
I did see the woolly mammoth thing, and I don't know how I'd forgotten about that. Oh my goodness, that's something I would have come whipping up in here going, we got to talk about the woolly mammoth. I forgot about it.
You're talking about energy. Just real quick, within the past 6 months, we've had ChatGPT. They have figured out how to do nuclear fission, which is essentially lossless energy.
Right.
Now, we haven't figured out how to harness it.
How do I put that in my phone so my battery quits dying?
Yeah, exactly. But it's a very interesting time. It's funny to see the scale and the speed at which we're seeing innovation.
Yeah.
As somebody about to send one of my kids out to college or into the real world, whatever you want to call it, one of the most valuable skills that I think these kids need to have to move forward is just frankly keeping up.
Yeah.
Seeing what's ahead, thinking about it, understanding it, asking these questions that we're asking, because this speed, this exponential speed of growth of technology is only going to get faster.
Yeah.
We're in that ramp up phase that's almost hard to comprehend because it's coming so fast, and it's interesting, it's neat. It just needs to be thought through.
Well, this is a topic that all of us can talk about forever and ever and ever, and we touched on it a few times. And but like we said, we want to have the conversations, and I know Ben would be able to help us have that conversation because he deals with it on one side of the stick that we don't get to on a daily basis. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having
coming in. And you have questions, I'm sure you can see Ben running around the church or something like that. Might be able to catch him at the Co. I need to come over there and make something on that laser thing.
Y'all still have the VR headsets and stuff over there?
We do. But even that, it used to be you had to have a computer with a crazy graphics card. And, it was $5,000 to have a VR headset. And now you can pick one up for $200 and there's no wires.
I don't like those things. I punch walls.
They give me a headache.
I punch a wall every time. Well, Patrick, we've got a lot of other things that are going breakneck speeds around Northside. What do we have coming at us pretty quickly here?
Well, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, February 28th, today is the last day of the Fill This House mission focus that we've been doing during the month of February. So if you'll go to northsidejackson.com/missions, you'll see the list of items that are needed for the new Scarlet Rope House. And if you'll bring those in, I mean, if you're a couple days late, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to turn your stuff away. So we would appreciate any donations that you can make. Also, if you're listening to this on February 28th, the deadline for turning in your payments or signing up for the Joy Group trips is tomorrow.
He got it right. I was wondering if
March 1st.
March 1st.
Yeah, I was wondering if he's going to be like, it's in a few days. You better hurry. Good job, Patrick.
You can find all the information for this stuff on our events page on our website or on the app. But there are 2 trips that are sponsored by the Joy Group. The Joy Group is our seniors group, but they've invited the whole congregation to go. The first one is at the Paris Landing Lodge Restaurant, and that deadline is March 1st, tomorrow, to sign up. And the other one is not happening until September, but they're taking a bus up to St. Louis to go see the Cardinals versus the Brewers, which that'd be a cool ball game to go see. But they need a down payment by March 1st if you want to go to that trip. You'll need to talk to Ed or Lila Bodkins. Their information, if you go to the events page on the website, their contact information is there. So if you're interested in going to either of those, make sure you sign up by tomorrow.
Do we know the cost for those? I know they might be determined later.
The approximate cost for the Paris Landing Lodge restaurant trip is only going to be about $10 a person, and then lunch is going to be kind of a Dutch treat, and so it'll be $15 to $20 a person for lunch.
Okay.
And then the St. Louis ball game, by March 1st, they need a $100 down payment, and then it'll be $50 to $100 after that. We can't really determine the price of the tickets until after February. So
makes sense.
March 5th, we have another information meeting about the trip to the Holy Land in Egypt. That'll happen Sunday, March 5th at 1 o'clock p.m. in room 301. So if you're interested in going to Jerusalem, Israel, and Egypt to see some pyramids, make sure you attend that meeting. I'm very excited about this, and I'm really going to try to go, I think.
Good.
So,
Ask your mummy.
No, I have to ask my wife is who I have to ask. Make sure you mark your calendars. Sunday, March 12th is daylight savings time. So we're springing forward. It's my least favorite day of the year. It's Glenn's favorite day.
Yes.
It's my
We're
least.
never going back, right?
That is correct.
I know.
That is correct.
I don't think we go back.
No, we don't. Yeah,
Which means
this
I'm
is the time.
losing this hour, and I'm never getting it back.
That's right.
That's right.
They're stealing time from me. But yeah, March 12th, make sure you set your clocks back and show up to church on time. March 15th, that Wednesday night, there will be no Wednesday night activities. Taking a little break, spring break.
Spring break.
So everybody's going to be gone anyways. So
Yeah, spring breaking.
And then the following Wednesday, when we come back on the 22nd, we're going to have a slight schedule change. All of our activities, well, dinner's still going to be at 5. Our service is still going to be at 5:45, but all of the following activities, the choir practice, the Bible studies, all the children's and youth stuff, that's going to be bumped back to start at 6:30 instead of 6:15. Also, the service is going to be held in the chapel. We're going to keep going with that. People seem to really be on board with that. So at least for now, we're going to keep it in the chapel. So when we come back on the 22nd, dinner, 5 o'clock in Hope Hall, service 5:45 in the chapel, and then all activities will start at 6:30. Mm-hmm. On April 2nd, we're having our Easter egg hunt. That is Palm Sunday, but that afternoon after church from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m., we're going to have the Easter egg hunt. And from what I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong, we're getting the animals back. What else are we going to have?
I know the animals will be here. A lot, thousands of eggs. Thousands of eggs. I don't know if there's going to be a woolly mammoth here or not, but maybe. Never know.
Never know. You got to show up to find out. But yeah, that'll kind of kick off our Holy Week. We'll have a Good Friday service that Friday, and then, of course, Easter Sunday on the 9th. And make sure you put this on your calendar. April 23rd, we're having our next congregational church meeting in Hope Hall at 11:30. We're going to have one service that Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, and it's going to be a joint service led by the children and the youth. So on the 23rd, we'll have Sunday school at 9, one service in the sanctuary at 10 o'clock, and then congregational meeting at 11:30 in Hope Hall. And there'll be a light lunch provided, and nursery will be available. So make sure you put that on your calendar. And I think that's all I got right now. Did I miss anything?
Well, just that it's Lent, and there's
It is Lent.
Emmaus walks for men, women, and chrysalis all in March, and we wish all those people to be participating in those well.
Yes.
So there's a lot.
There's a lot going on, and we'll keep you informed as I know more. I'll let you know more.
or your AI will let us know.
Or, next week, I think I'm just going to replace myself with an AI and see what
Yeah,
happens.
if you just give that to ChatGPT and,
Yeah.
and put your voice in the modulator,
I was going to say,
It'll
at least
do it
it'll
perfect.
sound like Patrick.
Man, if I had a Samsung phone, I could get Bixby and just have it just answer for me.
That's right.
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me. And thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast. Go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, this is Patrick.
This is Glenn.
I'm Kevin.
Ben.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.
Bye-bye.